Hello. Oh, maybe I should go put my teeth on. Hang on. There. That's better. And I pulled my hair out. No, I didn't pull my hair out. I pulled the rubber band out of my hair. Okay, what I wanted to do is I realized that I haven't recently said what is wrong with me and why I can't run. So I'm just going to give a really short story. I like to update, occasionally say it on online just so, because I get asked by so many people, so I can just refer them to the here. Say, there's a video, just go watch it. Okay, what happened is I was living in Tennessee and I had lived in Georgia and Mississippi and all over. And close to where I live in Tennessee, it's very common. One of the nurses told me everybody has this infection, and I had it. It's called histoplasmosis. And it comes from birds, or chickens specifically. Now, most people in the area have it in their lungs, and it doesn't do anything to you. It's just kind of dormant. By dormant, I mean it doesn't have any adverse effect on you. So it was in my lungs and just kind of hanging out there. And I was going regularly to the doctor to have checkups because I thought something just wasn't right. And, well, I was having a lot of babies at the time. So they'd say, well, come when you're not pregnant because I don't think there's anything wrong with you. So when I wasn't pregnant, I went there and they said, oh, it's your shoes, because I was wearing flip-flops. They said, the reason why you have balance problems and you have back problems and you have headaches is because of your shoes. And so I was really curious, and I would go try those things they used to have in the stores where you stand on them and they tell you about your feet and stuff. I'm like, no, it wasn't my shoes. Anyway, I got pregnant again. And that's an interesting story. I should stop and tell that story. Okay, the story was that I had a miscarriage, and I hadn't even told anyone about it. And so then I went to eat at Cracker Barrel afterwards. I was just trying to get my spirits back up because I was really, really upset at this time. And we went to go eat, and when I was in the bathroom, I threw up. And when I was coming out of the bathroom stall, a woman said, what did you have to eat? Because I want to avoid that. And I'm like, oh, it was nothing I ate. I just throw up sometimes. And at that point in my life, I did just throw up. I think whenever I get headaches, migraine headaches, I throw up. It's just what I do. But it was funny because she said that. And then we went home, and my mother-in-law at the time says, oh, I think you're pregnant. And actually, well, no, I know for a fact that I'm not pregnant. She says, okay. And we went home and I tested and I was positive. I'm like, how can that be? I just miscarried. So I decided we need to have a doctor look at this. So I went to the obstetrician, and the doctor I'd had moved. So I had a different doctor this time. And, oh, that's another story too, but I'm not going to get into that funny story. Anyway, so I went and had an ultrasound, and I actually did. I was pregnant, and the baby was born early. Because what happened, and that leads me, that's a perfect segue for what happened. When I was pregnant, they thought I had balance issues, so they thought that it was vertigo. And they'd given me this medicine, Antivert is what it was called, and it wasn't doing anything. And my husband at the time moved my bed from downstairs so that I wouldn't have to climb the steps to go to bed at night. Okay, so I'm having balance issues. I could not eat anything. But, it's pretty common for people to get really sick when they're pregnant. So I can't even remember the name of the doctor I was seeing at the time, but he was like, when you're not pregnant, come back and we'll look at it. Because I think it's pregnancy issues. So I went into the hospital, to the emergency room, and had to have IVs, because even if someone said, well, you can just drink water, I'd throw up. I could not even drink water. And if anyone mentioned food or I smelled food, I'd throw up. I was really, really, really sick and dehydrated, and I was losing weight. And I was like 5 months pregnant, and they're like, well, you should have fluid. So my bones were starting to protrude and stuff, and I looked really, really sickly. So I went into the ER, and they gave me this IV. I don't even remember what it's called, but it made me feel so much better. And then I went to Sonic and had something to eat. And my husband was like, hey, you just ate that. And he was expecting me to throw up any minute, but I didn't. So anyway, what happened is then I got really sick. I started getting worse and worse and worse. And so then they took me to the hospital, and they decided to just keep me there because it was only a temporary fix. Anyway, so when I went to the hospital, because at this point, I couldn't even cognitively consider things. It's like I thought my baby was past due, and his due date was like a couple of months ahead of time still. Anyway, I went in, and then they did a bunch of tests, and they took MRIs and stuff. They're like trying to figure out what was wrong with me because it was obvious I was almost going to die or something. Anyway, and they did MRIs on me, and the neurologist looked at the MRI, and he's like, yeah, it's abnormal, but maybe that's just a pregnancy thing. Because what it was the back part of my brain had swollen and was up against the skull in the back. And when I laid down on the back, it was so terrifying. I just screamed. I think that's why my husband took me to the hospital. But anyway, it was terrifying. And what it was my brain was pressing against my skull. And they call it like encephalitis. Anyway, there was another doctor who came and looked at Dr. Elazar. And he actually, I still think he saved my life. He's like, no, that's not normal. And he had me sent to another hospital because in that local hospital in Tennessee, they didn't have the ability to take care of me. So I got in an ambulance and I went to Vanderbilt. Oh, funny story there. I had a team, a neurologist. It's like a student hospital, so they're teaching people. And there was a whole team of neurologists seeing me, trying to figure out what my brain was having problems. Because I was having lumbar punctures and all kinds of stuff. They were trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And one of the guys was leaving, and they didn't tell me, or maybe they didn't, I didn't comprehend, I don't know, but when they said he's not going to be with us, I thought he died. And I started crying, and I'm like, I'm so sad, and I was like, I'm so sad to hear about your colleague. And they're like, what? He just moved. But I thought he died, because he wasn't going to be with us anymore. And I had to have a PICC line installed, because I kept ripping out IVs. Now, I don't know if you've ever had an IV, but it's not an easy thing to do. I was in the hospital for a long time, but I wasn't really mentally there. I don't know where I was or what I was doing, but I remember one time in the middle of the night, while I was supposed to be sleeping, they thought I was sleeping, but I wasn't sleeping. A bunch of nurses came, and they wanted to use the ultrasound machine. They're like, there's a pregnant lady and she's asleep. Let's go get her. And so they did an ultrasound. They're looking at the baby. They're like, oh, it's fine and stuff. Anyway, and then when I got an epidural, because they had to take it out via C-section, they were talking, and they thought that I was knocked out or something, because everybody thought I was in a coma, but I don't think I actually was. I don't know where I was. Anyway, I heard somebody named Sarah. They're talking about some Sarah, and I was like, and so when I went to see the doctor after I got better, I said to him, did that guy ever hook up with Sarah? And he's like, what are you talking about? I think it was Dr. Moses. And I was like, well, I just remember there was some guy who really liked a girl named Sarah. They're probably students or something. I don't know. But he's like, how the heck did you know about that? Anyway, that's just a funny story. But anyway, so I had the baby. And it was funny because after the baby was born, quite a while afterwards, and they'd sewn me up and they wheeled me out of there. And I was like, so where's my baby? I didn't know where it was, but I started having contractions after the baby was born. I was like, this really hurts. And my mom and dad were there and they took care of me. Anyway, it's funny because what they figured out it was, they given me everything they could for antivirus. If it was a virus that I was suffering from, that wasn't doing anything. Every time they come back, I felt like I was in a horrible Dr. House episode where every time they'd come back and they'd give me all these things they'd printed out and they're like, these are your symptoms, aren't they? This is what you have. They were wrong, and they treated me for bacteria, and they took samples from they did a brain biopsy, and they took samples and brain fluid and all this stuff, and I had to sign papers to be in a meningitis study and stuff, and I'm like, sure, whatever. That's not the time to ask somebody. I remember when they were going to be doing a surgery. Well, there's a lot of funny things that I remember, but I remember at one point they wanted me to sign a paper, and I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, you have to give permission. And then one nurse there says, oh, her mother has already given permission. I thought that was strange. They were going to operate on my brain and they wanted my permission. I didn't know what was going on. But anyway, and the doctor's name was Pinky Gaba, who figured this out. Anyway, so antivirus doesn't work, bacteria doesn't work, and I'm getting steadily worse. And they're like, well, let's wait till she has a baby. So I had the baby. I was still really sick. And they're like, well, she's going to die unless we do something. And they're like, well, it could be a fungus, but the cultures take 6 weeks to come back on those, so we won't even know which one to get, which antifungal to give her. Anyway, so they decided on this other drug called amphotericin B, and they could just inject it in my PICC line. It would go right to my heart and disseminate in my body and kill anything. They're like, oh, yeah, but there is one problem with that. That drug will kill it, yes, but it could kill her. And they're like, well, she's going to die anyway, so why not just do it? They're like, well, I'm not sure. Anyway, Pinky Gaba is the one who actually... Okay, it's a reflection. I thought there was mold on some bread, and I was like, oh, that's serious. My husband is allergic to bread, so I had to dispose of it quickly if that was the case. But it was just a little teal LOL doll case reflecting the sunlight onto the bread. Okay, so they gave me this drug, and I did have a reaction to it, but no problem. They just gave me Benadryl, which knocked me out again. I remember that because for months afterwards, I was still having this routine where they give me this amphotericin and Benadryl, and then it put me to sleep. And that was right when I was supposed to be going to classes in my in-hospital stay. When I got to go home and had nurses come to my house and administer, because I had an IV drip in my house. That was better. I didn't have to go to classes then, but I could not even sit up. I couldn't talk. I couldn't eat. It was funny because when I could finally eat, they gave me some Jell-O and I started eating it. And my husband comes in, he took it from me, he goes, don't eat that! And I was like, what's wrong? I was really hungry. I was glad that I was eating. I didn't say what's wrong because I would have been thinking it. Anyway, he says, she doesn't like Jell-O. And I honestly did not like Jell-O, but I was eating it and I liked it because it was food. Anyway, so... And another exercise that they used that I could not even do, they'd have me try to sit up on the bed and hit a balloon when they'd hit it back, and I couldn't even do that. That was supposed to get me strong enough. But, it's strange because mentally I was still the person I was when I went into the hospital. And I thought, well, when no one's looking, I'm going to get up and escape. So, as soon as everyone left for the night, I pulled out all my IVs. And I got up and I fell to the floor because I can't walk. And I climbed under the bed and I heard my husband come in and he's like, what's going on here? And I was under the bed and I was like, I'm just going to be really quiet. But so he found me and the rest was history. Sorry, I'm fixing something. This is way too long. Anyway, you got the gist of what's wrong with me. My balance was really bad, and I had to have a walker and a wheelchair, and I had to have lots and lots of physical therapy and speech therapy to learn to walk, to talk again. My sister's birthday was the day I got released from the hospital. And I read something I wrote in my journal. It said something about Hogwarts' birthday. It was Lindsay's birthday, but I don't know why I wrote Hogwarts. At the time, the Harry Potter movies were very popular, so maybe it was something with that. I don't know. Anyway, so they kept doing lumbar punctures, and eventually they came out totally clean. There was no infection in my body whatsoever, so they said, yeah, but she'll never be able to walk again because her brain has been so damaged. There's so many lesions. And my vision was really bad, and it was irreparable. But then my vision didn't repair until probably years later. But I got up and I could walk. That's why I got to walk with a walker. And I had a gait belt, and somebody would stand behind me and hold it to kind of help me balance. And they used to always get mad at me and say that my feet were too close together. And I'm like, that's how I walk. They're like, well, you can't walk that way anymore. They have to be a shoulder's width apart. And I felt like a buffoon or something. Ugh. But that's the way I had to walk. Anyway, so I could walk. And apparently I was young enough because I was only, I had 29, 30-ish. I had just turned 30 when I was learning to walk. So, or maybe it was in the hospital. I don't know, but I had just turned 30. No, I got out of the hospital in August, so I just turned 30 when I got out of the hospital. And I was young enough that the lesions in the back of my brain healed themselves. But some things have never worked. I've learned to, okay, you know how to do something one way and you've done it that way all your life. Well, you have to relearn how to do it without the muscles that you did use before. So I breathe differently, I think differently, I eat differently, I walk differently. But I'm standing and I stood this whole time and I haven't fallen once. I'm getting a whole lot better. So some muscles, and that's why I'm trying to run, but I don't think it's my muscles aren't a problem, it's my brain. I'm just going to have to learn to use the muscles that I do have in a way that allows me to run because I can't run the way I used to. So that's why I keep running. Maybe one day I'll do it in a way and I'll be like, hey, I can do this way. Anyway, that's my story. And I'm sticking with it. Bye.